Hello, this is Dr. Lee, and this is EDS 318. This is a discussion about sources of student diversity, and hopefully you have pulled up a document from the shared document section of our website called Sources of Student Diversity, and I have it here on the screen. This is how it came up on my computer, and I click the Enable Editing button, and then you can save it as desired and write in the implications side as we go along and take your own notes along the way. So we have already discussed how students are similar to each other, what adolescents are like in general, and that's important for us to understand. And now we're going to dive into the much more difficult and challenging part about how students are different from each other. And we're going to use this form as a way to walk through it. There are 10 different areas that we're going to discuss, and there are even more areas of student diversity, but we're going to focus on these 10. And I'm going to talk through for each area this section with the notes already in it and give you a definition and some examples of what we're talking about. And then I'll also be talking about some implications, and that's where you can take some notes and add some of your own thoughts and ideas of what these things mean for you as a classroom teacher of adolescents. This is the first of probably 3 short recordings that go over this topic. All right, so let's get started with the first area, which is cognitive, having to do with the mind and the brain. And as far as the definition, this includes a broad range of things. It could be information processing, the way that the speed and the way that students process what you're saying so that they can do it or so that they understand it. It could be talking about problem solving, mental strategies, or how they learn in general. And one of the most popular ways that we think about it is the low academic ability and the high academic ability. And there's a large range in there, obviously, because all the students are unique and different. But also another type of diversity under this cognitive area is multiple intelligences. And you may have heard this theory by Howard Gardner before. He says that there are 7, 8, there may even be more added in the future, different ways that our minds are wired to learn. For example, the linguistic learner learns best by hearing and reading. Then there's a musical, which is like me. I can memorize anything if I put a song to it, and I can do it at a much faster speed than in a different way. There's the logical mathematical, that's not me. Spatial, bodily kinesthetic, those that need to move around to learn. Naturalistic, interpersonal, intrapersonal. Later on in the course, we'll learn a bit more about those specifically. But that's a theory of multiple intelligence that has to do with cognitive diversity. There are also struggling learners, those who can't learn at an average rate. They might need more time, they might need other resources, they might need things said in a different way. And then on the other range, there are gifted and talented. And these are, they have above average abilities, but it's not just cut and dry, strong students. To be truly gifted and talented, there's actually a different way that they think, really in an exceedingly better way. And again, we'll talk about that later on in our course when we start talking about special education. So this is an important area of cognitive diversity. And let's talk about some implications. So what does this mean for you as a classroom teacher? And one obvious thing is that we should expect our students to be different from each other. We should expect that they're going to learn differently. And that means that we will do things not the same way for everybody. We should not just offer one way to do everything and assume everybody's going to get it. But instead, we plan ahead of time and we know they're going to need it in different ways. We also, another implication is that we should offer variety, a variety of challenges, a variety of ways to assess them, ways to instruct them. And then another thing that I thought of as far as an implication is that we need to be people who are looking for the potential in our students and to really look for and celebrate what's unique about them and their individual strengths. As believers, I think this is so key. We want to view students through God's eyes, the way that He has made them. And He has made them in an incredibly unique, diverse way. And we want to appreciate that and not just view all of these things as obstacles, but instead to view them, yes, as challenges sometimes, but as good things, as unique things, like the way that God has made them. So let's go on to our second area. This is the affective, and I could never remember that term earlier, and for some reason the just associating affective with the word attitudes really helps me, because this is the feeling attitude, and our students are very different in their attitudes, and you might think, why is that important? I'm learning to be a social studies teacher, I'm learning to be an English teacher. Why are we talking about our students' feelings? But these things have a lot to do with how they learn, with how successful their learning is. They impact their self-esteem. We're talking about things like time management, their confidence, and their self-direction. And although you might not feel like you need to teach time management, your students need you to. Because imagine if you are a very strong student, but you have horrible time management, that will significantly get in your way. It will be a hindrance to your success in the classroom. And so the main implication for this section of affective is that you as a teacher need to plan to teach these in addition to your content area. Be sensitive to what other issues might be going on in students' lives and things that you can give them some tips and some help for that could be critical to their life success. So for example, if you assign a large project, don't just drop it on them and assume they can do it. Assume, oh, these are seniors, they definitely know how to break this up and take it one step at a time. They honestly may not be able to do that. And they may benefit from check-in points along the way, or from you requiring them to make up a plan of attack and to break things into small pieces. Those are things that may come naturally to you, but they may not come naturally to all of your students. So that's an example of affective differences. A third category is physical. This is an obvious one. When we think about height, size, we have real active students who are always moving. We have quiet ones who could sit in the back row and never make a noise. So some of those physical differences. The psychomotor skills, you've probably learned about gross motor skills involving the big things, the jumping, the running, the kicking, but also fine motor skills, things involving like penmanship or fine artistic detail. But students also may have vision difficulties, hearing difficulties, and other things that get in their way physically. So for some implications, first of all, I would really caution you not to draw attention to weaknesses or things that really make a student different in this area. No matter how confident a student looks, he or she may really be insecure about some of these things, and you could alienate them by drawing attention to those. And then recognize that these things do play a role in the classroom. Certainly, if you had a student who had hearing challenges and you weren't addressing that, you weren't making sure he was seated in the right place, or you never even really found out about his hearing challenges, then he may just kind of sink into the background and stop trying so hard. And so we need to do everything we can to make sure we're meeting those physical needs. When I think about these areas, I always remember one student in my 6th grade classroom. I'll call him David. And he was just a winning kind of a guy. I could picture him being president someday. Everybody loved him. He could make everybody laugh. Good-looking kid. I mean, just really had the world going for him. But he was short, very short. He was certainly shorter than all the boys, shorter than all the girls. And I thought he was fine with it. And he told jokes about it. He was quick to laugh about it. But I found out later on, this is years later, I think close to his graduation, that it was the most humiliating thing in the world to him when someone mentioned his height, and especially when teachers would joke about it. And that really stood out to me, because you would never ever know that by interacting with him and by talking with him. So always be careful not to draw attention to those things. All right, a fourth area is learning styles. And let me read this definition here. A learning style is an individual's preferences for the condition of the learning process. And those preferences can affect one's learning, including the when, the where, the how learning takes place, and with what materials. And this, I think, is a very important area and can make a huge difference as far as the taking away some of the drudgeries of learning. If you force someone to learn in a way that's not comfortable for them, that's not easy for them, then learning can become very difficult. One type of learning style is the cognitive style, how people process information. There are some of your students who are global thinkers, and that means they can see the big picture very easily. And students like this really benefit from when you say up front what the objective is. You know, what is it they're going to be learning today? And it really helps them to kind of get it centered in their mind, and then they can follow where you're going, even if you go from place to place to place. There are other students, though, who are very analytic. This is the way my brain is wired. And things need to make sense to me. They need to go step by step by step. And if a teacher is just kind of rambling and I feel like they're not prepared, where is this going? What am I supposed to learn? I will easily get lost and not see where we're going. So students are different. So we need to give the learning goal for everybody, and we need to talk about big picture global things, but we also should be step by step, and it should make sense what we're saying as a teacher. There's the idea of brain hemisphericity. You've heard of left-brained people and right-brained people. Left-brained students are going to be more analytical, logical, concrete, and sequential. And right brain are more visual, spatial. To me, these are the creative people. This is not me. I've always been envious of right-brained people because I'm so left-brained. Then the biggest type of learning style that we have are the visual, auditory, and kinesthetic. And we're going to talk about these more. And it's very important that you know those three words and that you know what they mean. A visual learner is one who learns by seeing, an auditory learner one by hearing, and a kinesthetic is one who learns by doing. So in our teaching, in fact, let me jump over to implications. Obviously, it's very important that we're including a lot of variety, a lot of instructional techniques, and specifically related to these sensory modalities. We should try in every lesson that we teach to do something visual, auditory, and kinesthetic, to include as many types of learners as possible. This also brings up the area of differentiated instruction. And we're going to talk about this in much more detail, and you are going to need to learn how to and prove that you can teach differentiated lessons. Differentiation is not just doing different things. Like I'll show a movie one day and I'll do an essay this time, but then next time it'll be a fill in the blank. That's not real differentiation. Differentiation is offering different ways for your students to learn the same objective. So for example, for a specific lesson, you might give students a choice to study alone to learn the information, to do it with a partner, or to do it in a group of 5 or 6. Those are 3 different ways then they can learn the same thing. And we'll talk about many more examples later on. So recognize that there are people-oriented students of yours, and there are also some who really hate the social interaction and would love to just do it by themselves. Remember that some need the big picture, so you state the objective, and some need things highly step by step. Many of your students need to see it in order to understand it, and they need you to explain it and show them a visual. And so we really need to do lots of different types of things for many of our students to succeed. We're going to stop there. This is part 1 of Sources of Student Diversity, and we'll pick this up with the next video.